Welcome to another edition of Falmouth Cares Business Roundtable. I am your host, Troy Clarkson, and as always, we have our regular panel of local experts, Bill Zammer from the Flying Bridge Restaurant, tech executive Gary Vacon, and Falmouth Chamber of Commerce President Michael Kasparian. As we do each week, we try to bring guests on to share experiences and how they have adapted to this pandemic and innovated based on the conditions which we find ourselves in. So today we're very pleased to have Jennifer Edwards from the Falmouth Road Race and two very experienced and successful local realtors, Hart Cool and Jamie Regan. So thank you very much to our guests for being with us. We're happy to have you here to share your experience. And we will start this week's show, as we have done the last several weeks, getting an overview of the impacts of the coronavirus on our local community, to get some of the hard numbers. And this week, because Governor Baker did announce some details of the phased plan for opening the economy and our communities, we'll ask our local expert, Gary Vacon, to provide us some details on that. So as always, Gary, thank you so much, and we'll turn it over to you.
Oh, Troy, you got to enable screen sharing.
He has the power. All right.
He's
Okay,
God.
there we go. There we go. Okay, do we see that disclaimer slide? I think we do, right?
Yep.
Okay, so this is data as of May 17th. Thank you, Troy. And it includes the usual public sources. Again, I want to emphasize that the amount of testing is limited in the whole U.S. We've tested 3.51% of the population since this thing started, and we're testing about 0.11% of the U.S. population a day. Massachusetts doing about twice as good as that. 6.68% of the population has been tested, about 0.17% per day. So, and it's not a random sample, so statistical inferences are hard to make, and the forecast is uncertainty remains high. So let's look at the growth factor, which we look at every week. This is kind of the compounding rate, kind of like an interest rate for Corona. The blue line is the United States, and the orange line is Massachusetts. We're both of them have creeped down to about 1% a day. Now, remember, we started way up here where we're growing at like 20 or 30% a day. Well, that's happening every few days. You double the number of cases. When you're out at 1% a day, you're only doubling cases. It takes just 70 days to double cases, compound interest every day. So that's a major improvement. This is the Massachusetts daily cases, a spreadsheet I've been keeping for a while. And you can see that from the peak, we've kind of trended down. And I always put this next to the testing. This is the amount of testing that occurred, because, you know, if you see like a low point here, you have to be really careful. There were very few tests performed. You can't really draw a conclusion. But if you blur your eyes a little bit, you can see that we're kind of creeping down. And we've been coming down steadily for a number of weeks now. But we're still at, you know, we're still finding 1,000 new cases a day, roughly, even now. So it isn't like it's going away. So let's make sure we understand that. Then, as I've done every week, we talk about a model, which is the University of Washington model, the Gates Foundation funded effort, which last week they expanded to really include a complete SEIR, so-called model, susceptibility, exposed, affected, recovered, the whole thing. This extended the tails, which is kind of what we have seen in New York and what we've seen here. It goes up faster than it goes down. And they've also tried to reflect policy changes associated with opening up of various states, now including us after today. They've increased, the sad news here, and we talk about deaths like they're just numbers, but they are people. And it's very sad. The national death rate forecast over the last week, they've increased another 10,000. So they're projecting 150,000 people to die as a result of Corona. And Massachusetts up about 2,000 to over 7,000 people. Okay, so now we'll start to look a little bit deeper at their data and how they work. They do the social distancing model. This is when we closed various things like educational facilities and businesses and so forth. And this is kind of normal mobility, and this is kind of how mobility has decreased and where they think we're headed. Now, I think that they did not know when and how we're going to open up, so I suspect that this model will have some changes over the next week as they look at our opening up strategy. Based on their model, they're showing this kind of an infection rate. Now, I just bring this up every week. This is the confirmed infections based on testing. But this dotted line is their estimated infection. So they're guessing, someplace between 5 and 10 times as many real infections as we've tested. And again, this is part of the limitations of testing. And this is the Massachusetts projected death rate. So now let's go right into Massachusetts real numbers. What's kind of interesting, this curve, which is real numbers of deaths in Massachusetts, looks an awful lot like that curve, kind of the same shape. So those are the real numbers, which says a lot for that model. Hospitalizations have been on the downslope quite significantly. We were up almost as high as 4,000 hospitalizations, now around 2,600 hospitalizations. And those are the net discharges. This is another number that Governor Baker talked heavily about depending on and making his decisions. And then this testing by date, this little red circle is important as well. This is showing what percentage of tests are positive, and we've creeped down under 10%, which is another magic number in terms of decision-making that the government, the state government has decided to use. The other thing we wanted to go through was the opening plan just announced today at 11 o'clock. So we haven't had a lot of time to process this, but this is what we heard, and what there's some graphics from the state that I've put up here to try to get at the things that impact us most on the Cape. He's talked about a minimum of 3 weeks between phases. I think it's really important that he talked about it this way. He's not saying that the difference between phase 1 and phase 2 is 3 weeks. He's saying the difference between phase 1 and phase 2 is at least 3 weeks, and he's going to let the data speak to him. And he's using these factors. He's looking at the positive test rate going down, which we just looked at. He's looking at the hospitalization going down, the ICU utilization going down, and the death rate going down. So they're looking at all that data. And the other thing they're doing in Massachusetts, and I really think that it's been very admirable, that the focus on testing has been significant, and tracing. The governor started to grow a tracing organization, I think fully 6 or 8 weeks ago, before a lot of people were talking about it. And we're doing 10,000 tests a day. He believes in July he can get us to 46,000, and by December get us to 75,000. 75,000 is, there's 7 million people in the state. It's like 1% a day, 30% a month. That's a lot of testing. And when you get up into this kind of testing, you could start testing asymptomatic people. As you know, asymptomatic people can be carriers, and we could help isolate. We can trace and then isolate, and this is really a good and helpful way to reduce the risk as we open up. So the other thing important that he said was, reopening doesn't mean it's Mardi Gras and we just go back to where it was, right? This means that we would maintain social distancing. There would be hygiene protocols. There'd be people wearing masks. There'd be staffing and operations rules and cleaning and disinfecting rules, and those would remain in place. But here's kind of the meaty slide of what is in each phase. On May 18th, that's today, essential businesses, including manufacturing, construction. On the 25th, this opens up to lab space. I know a number of us could use a haircut, and retail, at least curbside fulfillment. Phase 2 starts to include restaurants and retails. This could be as soon as 3 weeks, but it could be later than that based on what the numbers do. In phase 3, more into the arts and bars and so forth. And phase 4, kind of normal operation. Some of the other things that were interesting here, which affect us a lot, was May 25th, beaches could open in Massachusetts with guidelines. Exactly what those guidelines are, I think, is going to be interesting to sort out. Things like fishing and hunting and boating and charter operations and so forth. This is all available on the mass.gov website if people want to look it up. And then again, on beaches, there was a little bit of detail on beaches also on that website, where the phase 1 beach opening would require 12-foot distancing between beach blanket groups, 10 people max in a group, move down to 6 feet distancing in phase 2, et cetera. So there's some rules around that and beach services. And then it's important to know that they're going to use these 6 criteria to decide to move from phase to phase, which is to continue to see a positive test rate improvement, a death rate improvement, hospitalization reduction, healthcare still having enough capacity to handle what's coming in, increased testing capacity and tracing capacity. And he's going to rate these in, red. And you can see right now they're saying we're kind of green, yellow, green. And for that reason, we can open up at this phase 1 level. So that's kind of a summary of what happened today and a summary of the numbers. I'm going to give this back to Troy and the group.
Gary, thank you so much. And that's just a great overview of really the fact that this continues to be, here in Massachusetts at least, a very data-driven group of decisions. And I know that our guests on the show today have dealt with that dynamic quite a bit. And Jennifer Edwards from the Falmouth Road Race, we're very pleased to have you here today. And we'll start with you because I think the data that Gary presented was a really good segue into having this conversation with you, because as this pandemic began to emerge, one of the questions that many, many people started asking was, well, what about the road race? And so I know eventually you and the board made the difficult but necessary decision to cancel this year's race. But like many folks we've had here on the show the last several weeks, it didn't end there. And you decided to innovate and to create and to think about ways in which the Falmouth Road Race, which is such a vital part of the soul of this community, to continue to be an event that people could rally around. And so, that's really important. I think that you folks put that work in, and we're happy to have you share with us and our viewers today how that came about and how you're moving forward.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And, every time I hear the word canceled, it hurts just a little bit because, we say that the race wasn't canceled. The town, decided that they were going to ban all large mass gatherings. And, and so when we heard that news the morning after the selectmen's meeting, we thought, okay, we need to move quickly. We had seen the writing on the wall. We were already putting together sort of a proposal to have a virtual event, but make it an event that was going to stand out from the rest because, everyone's flipping that switch and going virtual. And, we knew that people are going to have virtual fatigue as the summer goes on. And so we thought, okay, we're going to put our heads together and figure out how we can redesign this event to make it something, that provides people with a sense of community and hope and purpose and gives them a goal, something to kind of work towards. So we just sat around as a team and we threw every idea that we could think of how we could engage participants from all around the country, all around the world, with Falmouth and with this event, and how we can support our very robust nonprofits program. So, we have 150 or so Massachusetts-based nonprofits that, have runners that run and raise money for their organizations last year to the tune of $5.1 million. And they were already on board and had recruited runners. And, so we thought the first thing is we need to support them and we need to give them an event that isn't canceled, because all we were hearing is, we've lost all of our opportunities for fundraising. Please don't cancel, and so, we brought the idea to the board. The board was, right behind us and willing to support any way that they could. One of the ideas and part of our surprise and delight campaign that we have come up with is that board members are going around town and buying gift cards that we will include maybe in a runner registration when they get their mailing. We can just send it off when we see somebody, doing something awesome or helping someone else or supporting, a charity team in a very special way. So we're kind of keeping a list of people and organizations that, really impress us as leaders and inspiration. So we're working on that, and all the different restaurants and, shops around town are being supported. So this is another way that we can give back to the town and, kind of help support them in this time of need by having a virtual event. People that might not have otherwise been able to run 7 miles can do this event. So You can do 7 miles all at once, race it. You can walk a mile a day for 7 days. You can jog 2 miles one day and 5 miles. And it doesn't matter. Any way you can get 7 miles in over a 2-week.
Jennifer, can Troy and I sit in our chairs and do it?
You can do it as long as you're moving forward. We
Okay,
just want
okay,
to
we'll do
move.
that. How's that? Troy, you're on.
I'm in.
That's great. Yeah. So, so we have different, tiers for registration. We open registration today. We are absolutely overwhelmed with the
Nice.
positivity and the good energy. We have already, over 5,000
Oh, that's
participants.
great. Wow.
It's unbelievable. I mean,
One day.
Terrific.
yeah, we were excited, but this is, it's been a full day. We kicked off our kids run. So SBLI usually has a fun run the night before the race every year, the SBLI Family Fun Run. And so we've been working with them to put together something for the kids. So the kids now have the SBLI Kids at Home Challenge. So they'll have a list of 7, challenges, things they have to complete over this 2-week period, like, run 7 minutes, eat a fruit or a vegetable, do a chore, do something kind, write a letter to a teacher or a first responder or a healthcare worker. So they check all these
Good
off, and
ideas.
they get something in the mail that their parents can share with them. They get their bib and they get some crayons. They have we're going to give them a mask, a protective face covering mask that's branded, and then the piece de resistance, they get a superhero cape when they finish all of their
Oh, I
7.
love
That's
it.
great.
So they are
That's great.
heroes. So we're
Bill,
kicking
maybe
off
you should
today.
do that instead. Do the kids run. You get a cape.
I like that part. I wish we could get Falmouth Cares on the logo on their shirts.
It's so funny. Yeah, we were looking at your logo. I said, "Oh, these are great. I love these."
And then we
Yeah,
get on. Have you already printed your T-shirts?
we have. We're still working with New Balance to figure out the design of the shirts.
Oh, I'd love to. Maybe we can do something with the little Falmouth Cares on it.
I love it. We'll have to chat after this.
We'll definitely talk
Right.
about that.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
partnerships are fantastic. We love to involve the community. Everyone has been
Great
really
idea.
supportive. Yeah. So all the registrants, they're going to get a couple of different mailings. So they're going to get their traditional runner mug that, you have to have the mug. They're going to get there it is, last year's lobster mug. This year,
Love
The
it.
most popular so far, I think.
yes, it is. We were very proud of that one. So they'll get their New Balance shopper bag that they have. We're going to have, of course, you get your bib, personalized bib. And then, like I said, there's some surprises along the way. I can't share everything because that would ruin the fun. But we're going to have a lot of opportunities to win, contests online. You can meet up with some elite athletes or some VIPs in a private Zoom session. We have all kinds of things lined up. We're having so much fun planning this and spreading the word. And we were looking at the heat map today. We literally have people all over the world that are signing up for this, and it's
Oh,
very
great.
exciting. Yeah, and
Jennifer,
the
it's
hope is-
amazing. It's amazing the number of charities that depend upon that your road race. It's just incredible.
Yeah,
That money is so important to them.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
got to
well-
continue.
Well, Jennifer, you said it yourself, over $5 million last year was raised for charitable organizations. And that doesn't even count the money that the road race itself then turns around and donates to other organizations and to the community. So as a representation of some of the folks in Falmouth, we are very grateful that
Absolutely.
you didn't hear the word cancel and understand the word cancel. You heard the word cancel and were challenged to figure out how you could make it better and improve it and adapt to these changing times. So thank you for that. And that's really the spirit of innovation that we try to encourage in this weekly roundtable. And we thought it was important to bring you on so that people could see that you can indeed make some pretty wonderful lemonade from these lemons. And so keep
Thank
up the great work.
thanks.
And so the real estate industry was also really challenged because it in many ways depends on close personal interaction and the ability to take people into other people's homes so that they get interested in buying them. And although virtual real estate sales, I know, has increased exponentially over the last many years, the ability to have that personal connection, I know, is still a critically important part of success in the real estate business. So we're also really pleased to have Hart Cool and Jamie Regan with us to talk about how they too have innovated and adapted in this changing time. So Annie, we'll start with you. As the mid-March turned into late March, turned into early April, and you realized that open houses and close personal contact had to be minimized. How did you adapt, and what have you seen in terms of trends in the real estate market here locally?
Well, let me just first say that I miss the handshake.
Oh, right.
I really miss the handshake. And I still catch myself going, yeah, no, reaching out.
Indeed.
So I miss
So
that.
many of us, yes.
Yeah. And I miss the closing table. We don't show up at closings anymore. Everything's done in the parking lot. You catch your check from the step of the lawyer's office. So it's kind of anticlimactic. What's happened for me, I've had a couple listings that have chosen not to continue to be on the market because they didn't want the potential of bringing the bug into the house. They needed to close up shop for this duration to keep it clean. But I have, I'll tell you what, our new uniform is gloves, masks, and sanitary wipes. We're constantly doing that. I sit in the parking lot of many of my houses while people walk through, just to keep the exposure down. I know that my photographers and my inspectors and electricians don't want you in the house while they're doing work, and I don't blame them. We on the Cape have the good fortune of having a lot of empty houses, so because of the second home market. So the risk is less, but still prevention is high, right? So you want to not contaminate, because the crazy thing, and I think Gary has said this more than once about this illness, is we don't know if we're carrying it.
Right.
So prevention is really important to just keep your exposure down. So for me, I've been really busy. I don't know where Jamie is, but Jamie has inspired me. Now, Jamie, by the way, is one of my mentors. He's been in the business a lot longer, yet he's much younger than me. And he kind of taught me the biz all those years ago with Century 21. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jamie.
Grasshopper.
And
And
thank you. I mean, you helped me in the radio business when I had the radio talk show.
oh, that's right.
If it wasn't for you,
Right.
God, we
Oh.
were very nervous about that and didn't know what we were doing, and had a nice run at that.
Yeah, you did. It was great. We had fun.
95.1, yes. And whoever thought we'd be doing virtual Facebook open houses? I mean, it's just
Yeah.
amazing.
And Jamie has taken off with that. And one of the things you've inspired, because I'm a little bit, for as many things as I'm excited about, I don't like video. Not something I'm happy about. But you've been doing some really wonderful virtual open houses, and I've been very impressed. I will say I'm stalking you, sir.
Oh, well, I'll tell you, I had no clue what it was to do, and I had the opportunity to do my first one up in North Falmouth. Great house, a big house on a beautiful Cedar Lake, and it was something people are familiar with, but going around and showing the house and having people pop in, just getting comfortable with the technology was very interesting, and it was very interactive. I first talked about having people comfortable working out of their home back in the early 90s when we had 286 computers. Gary, you probably remember those 286, and it was a big deal. We went to 386, and that's when they talked about having a home office on the Cape and people getting to use it. And it really took a long time to become comfortable with it. And now we're very comfortable with it. We didn't have things like Zoom. It took a long time to get used to video as a medium and to make it easy, because I too wasn't ready to do a lot of that. We did some of the drone work early, and now the drone work's great, but the tests of how it started out was a little bit tricky. My uniform is similar to yours, the masks and the different types of gloves, but I always have Lysol or some spray disinfectant. People really appreciate that. And people are concerned. I mean, the thing that really amazes me is how many people are personally affected by that. My best man at my wedding, he lost his brother in a nursing home, and that was, wow, that was something that happened. And then another friend of mine actually had it, a younger guy, and it's here, and people, it's real, and people from out of state. I look at what happened around 9/11, and that was the biggest disaster in my career until now, and how challenged people were with the markets and everything, and that was different. But people came in and bought homes, and there are a lot of second home people that left the city to come here. I've been watching the population of the Upper Cape and a bit of the change in Massachusetts population. And, back in the early 2000s, we were a very year-round community. We're not as year-round today as we were then, and we're getting people coming in for a different period of time. Today we didn't hear that they've opened up weekly rentals. We've got to wait at least 3 weeks to find out what's going to happen there. We had to refund rentals that we had for this Memorial Day weekend. That was interesting, people there. We're talking to people that are more comfortable with renting for a month, 32 days is what we say. So there's people looking for that. Some fine rentals are hard to find because some of them are booked, and people are starting to buy instead of rent because they can't do it. This pandemic has brought people together, and whether they're working together or having that family place to live, it's changed what they want and what they need. For years, it's been the big open space, great room. Well, now they like to have 2 offices, maybe one upstairs and one downstairs, so there's some separation. Plenty of places for people to go within the house. Plenty of space outside to go. So we're seeing that. And probably the most interesting thing that we're seeing, as you mentioned, a few people put their properties on hold to sell. Our inventory is very flat. It's not a lot is coming on the market. When it does come on the market, especially if it's in good condition, the days on market have come down by 1/3. So prices are holding.
Yeah. So I listed something on Friday and had 24 showings and 6 offers by Sunday evening.
Wow.
So yeah. And I think that part of that, and like you said, Jamie, a lot of folks who are living in metropolitan areas are looking to get some air, and they're not all that concerned about where or how, but they're urgent about getting out of the city. They're urgent.
Those are very interesting points, and thanks. So it's both interesting and encouraging to see that the market in some ways is still very strong. So because the inventory is low, when a house comes on, in some cases it's selling rather quickly. I'd like to continue that dialogue, but I want to bring Michael Kasparian into the loop, because one of the interesting dynamics is related really both, Jennifer, to what you said, and then Annie and Jamie about the dynamics with the real estate. When people see that things are starting to open up or activities are starting to occur, they look to the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce to be able to make changes and to be able to make things happen. And I know as people start to have these dialogues, Michael, you've been inundated for several weeks now with people who expect you to wave that magic wand of yours and open up the community. And so talk to us a little bit about how things like the Falmouth Road Race occurring virtually and people coming down for 32-day rentals is impacting the work that you do and what you've seen.
Yeah, I got yelled at by a woman who blamed me for canceling the road race. So just to let you know, some misinformation out there, you know what I mean? I'm like, we didn't have anything to do with that, and you can do it virtually. You're right, we are inundated. And, it's kind of interesting, to Jamie's point and Annie's point, I probably had 4 or 5 phone calls today from people who called to say, okay, is it okay to rent a place now? We can't wait to come. And because they knew that Governor Baker was going to say something today. And, I think it was an interesting press conference today, not out of the realm of what we expected. But really, to Gary's point, a lot of it is unknown, particularly in 3 weeks when we get into phase 2. We still don't know what percentage of restaurants are going to be able to be filled. We still don't know what the impact on rentals is going to be. And I think the governor made it very, very clear that it's all predicated on the numbers, and the numbers are predicated on people following the rules and paying attention. So when I look at those beach requirements, it's going to be a tough job for the town to enforce those type of limitations. And it's going to be very challenging, and people have to understand that there is no magic wand. You're right, Troy. We
Right.
get called from our member businesses. We're doing the best we can to advocate. Our big concern is the fact that for most of our businesses, particularly those seasonal ones, there's such a limited amount of time. The restaurants, how do we expand restaurant seating capacity? In retail stores, how's that going to look? How many people are going to be able to go in? It looks like 3 weeks from now, we're going to have some type of an opening. Back to Gary's point, if the numbers go up, then the governor could throttle it back. There's so much you can do. There's only so much you can do because you have to wait and see now that we have some direction. I mean, the one thing that we've been advocating for and that we can kind of get some immediate movement on, and I'm happy to say the town has been so willing to be cooperative and see what they can do, is try to get this restaurant seating expansion going. And what we've really been pushing at is particularly the restaurants outside of the Main Street area that have parking lots, that have land that's contiguous, getting some additional tables out there. Bill's Restaurant, for example, getting tables on the lawn, maybe using a portion of the marine parking lot there. On Main Street, there are a lot of ideas about Main Street. We're really pushing the options that are immediate, that the selectmen can do, which is what we're proposing is closing Academy Lane, Library Lane, Shore Street Extension, so that tables can be put out there, using the library lawn, Peg Noonan Park, so that when the restaurants are open, again, they're going to be limited to capacity. So even if they were able to put tables out, how many tables could they put out there? But could there be an opportunity for people to go in and buy something, walk to one of these tables, have some type of a system set up where they're going to be cleaned and sanitized, and increase that takeout business to get some immediate dollars in there? But it's like Jennifer and the folks at the road race, thinking outside of the box, people working together, people being really respectful of each other's opinions and working as a community. But I think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be 3 weeks and 3 weeks and 3 weeks. I think there could be some challenges along the way. It all depends. You're looking at 32,000 people who live here. We've talked about there's another 35,000 second homeowners. They're coming. Tourism. If you go to our website, we've got a video that we put on there that Brian Switzer video put together for us. It's pretty amazing. And it talks about we are here and we're ready to connect you with the community when the time is right. We don't know, but we want people to know we're here. And it's the careful balance. You want people to come and visit, but it's going to be safe and secure first. So there are a lot of questions, and people working together. Hopefully it's going to come together, and we'll have some type of a summer season where everybody can enjoy themselves, the businesses can do okay, and everyone's health is not compromised.
Troy?
Yes, Bill, you've seen the dynamic that Michael talked about, because you've got week and a half, couple of weeks under your belt now doing takeout. And when I went by to grab some onion rings recently, there were a couple of tables out on the lawn, and people were sitting at the tables, but they were wearing masks and respecting the distances. And how have you found that challenge of your new normal?
We've not had any problems with that, and we've had some tables out there, and folks will go in and they'll order something to sit out there, and we are sanitizing the tables afterwards. So we're doing our work to do it, and we'll probably continue doing that to a degree. But there is something, I want to be sure I'm not being political about something that both the citizenry as well as the business owners need to understand. We have a serious problem coming forward where the PPP and the unemployment insurance situation has gotten to the point where getting people back to work is going to be very difficult, because there are folks who are making more money being at home than are working. So I don't have enough employees right now to open 2 of my restaurants. And I normally have had, dependent upon the guest worker program, which is kind of ironic. There's 30 million people out of work, and I got to bring guest workers in from Jamaica, although I don't think that's going to happen this year, the way things are going. But I can't recruit employees because they're making too much money at home. So somehow, when Michael, you talk about opening the restaurants, or retail shops for that matter, we can't find employees. And I don't know what the answer is. And I know they were talking about extending it to the end of the year. And I do realize you need to get money into people's hands. There's no question about that. The fellow owns the Mavericks. I can't think of his name right now. The financier.
Cuban.
Yeah, he was just on a while ago, and he's begging people to spend the money that they're getting because they're saving money. People are saving money instead of spending it, which is a real dilemma because the idea is to stimulate the economy. If you're not spending it, in some cases, you're not helping.
Right.
I don't know the answer to that, but the other part of that is, of course, we've got this whole liability issue, which is coming forth. And people are, for example, in my case, if I bring an employee back to work, I can't force that employee to come to work. If that employee gets sick with a COVID-19, then I'm responsible. They can sue me for it because I forced them back to work, or they can refuse to come to work saying that they feel it's unsafe. So we're in this situation now where I can't find, and not only me, but all numbers of employers, both retail as well as restaurants, we can't find people to work. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure the politicians don't seem to be finding it as well, but I'm looking forward to them doing something soon, hopefully. But
that's a good point. And, I think Bill brings up a really good point. We hear that from not just Bill, from many businesses that they're all very concerned about actually having people available to work. How are we going to be able? So, I mean, this is such a compound problem. There's no easy answer. It is really almost like one day at a time, and then trying to be proactive and kind of going with it as it comes.
But I do think, Michael, and I agree, and with the two realtors on board, that I think by this fall that there's going to be a shakeout of a lot of companies, sadly enough. But I think we can find it. There will be a new economy here, and whether or not that's going to work with people staying at home, and working from here. I'm seeing it all around me now. We live in Mashpee and Papaneset, and we see that happening where people are here. It's like the middle of summer almost. It's incredible. And of course, none of them are walking around with their masks on. So they're not adhering to the guidelines, which is another problem. They're bringing things from other areas to here. So we are faced with quite an interesting situation.
So let's talk about that dynamic. And this is really for anyone around our virtual table here, because we've been talking about this for several weeks now, and both Annie and Jamie touched on it. But so we've had the ability, no matter our industry, to work remotely for a long time with technology the way it is. But at least our traditional paradigms would suggest that some industries are more conducive to that than others, right? We have this thought that we need a bricks and mortar building, for instance, to do government business. Now, my full-time work is in local government, and I've been working from home pretty much full-time since mid-March. And you wouldn't generally think that you could transact with your government in a virtual way. But I think that, and examples like that have proven to us that we are on the precipice of a new economy here. And so we may very well see people who traditionally thought they needed to go into the office every day, retreating to, as Annie mentioned, out of maybe closely, densely populated urban areas to more bucolic, tranquil, peaceful areas like Cape Cod and Falmouth. So, the folks that work with you, Jennifer, could probably telecommute, and certainly Gary, as someone experienced in the technology industry. You and I have chatted about the fact that you had people working for you, and all of them were outside of the United States. So
yeah, no, there's a pile of that going on in tech right now. A friend of mine now is working for a Fortune 500 company where he's got 25 engineers working for him. None of them are in the same country as another one, and his workstation looks like a trading desk with multiple screens, and he's got a spec here, he's got a video conference here, he's got some kind of texting going on over here, and I think, I wasn't brought up that way. I was brought up, you bring all the people that you want to get something done, you put them in the same room, and you beat their heads together till you get it, right? But the new generation thinks this way, and is very comfortable with this, and very comfortable with the idea that socialization, virtual socialization, is almost equivalent to real socialization. And I think, I think there's a real opportunity here for the Cape to move a pile of people down here. I think it really is true.
So, Annie and Jamie, what do you think about that? Are you seeing those trends or that interest? I mean, with all due respect to Sheboygan, Wisconsin, if you could live in Sheboygan, Wisconsin and telecommute with Falmouth, I mean, I think most people would probably choose Falmouth.
Is that the
Well,
Jello capital of the world?
Remember
Remember that from that, right? Am I right?
We're seeing it in different age groups. I mean, the sweet spot in the real estate business the last decade has been pre-retirement people looking at their, not necessarily their retirement home, but their place where they can work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. They've been able to do this for a while and have their lifestyle because, they're closer to retirement, but they're not going to retire. People are retiring later. They want to be able to have their family there. And now with this, for health reasons, people want to have their family with them because they want to know who's hanging out with who and, where we going and, we staying safe. And we're finding people that way. I am concerned about the workers, as Bill mentioned, having affordable housing for them, affordable rentals for them. We've been talking about that for a long time, but we haven't seen the zoning changes. We haven't seen government helping us in that particular area as much as we would like to, because that, affordable living arrangements on Cape Cod is hard to come by.
Very difficult.
One of the funny parts about the affordable housing, we've had a situation back when Gary and I were on the hospital board where we were bringing young doctors in, male or female, and the spouse couldn't find a job somewhere. So they didn't come here. So because, you're not going to just have one work and not the other one work. So we found it to be a big problem. So I think you're going to see more people, even more professionals, young professionals, coming to the Cape because now one can work at home or one has a job as a member. They can be running any number of things and doing things. So I think the Cape, in a sense, I don't want to say the word prospers, but the new economy with these people down here raising their children, which is a great place to do that, obviously. I think it's going to change the dynamics of Cape Cod, where we won't be such a seasonal economy and not so dependent upon tourism, which would help out a lot of the businesses.
And that's
I'm not supposed to say that, Michael. I know that. I'm sorry.
No, you're right to that point. But unfortunately, what's going to happen is the haves and the have-nots, it's going to become even more difficult. So the people moving here in those jobs are basically in higher paying jobs.
True.
And it's the service jobs, right, that the people, can't afford to live here. So they're going to still keep commuting from off the Cape. What's the average price? What's the median price now in Falmouth? $560, am I right? Is it in the five somethings, you guys?
$480.
I'm sorry? $480 in Falmouth altogether?
No, it's for the Cape. It's
For the Cape, but what about Falmouth? What about Lake Falmouth?
It depends on the region, but Falmouth's
North Falmouth, West Falmouth.
Yeah, it's probably $500,000.
$500,000. So, I hear what you're saying, but the challenge is still going to be providing, workforce housing,
Right.
and that's the issue. I mean, there's affordable housing, but then there's workforce housing. And then you get people like, if you speak to Chief Dunn, he can't hire police officers because they
Right.
can't afford to live here. So never mind doctors. I mean, not saying never mind. We need doctors and their spouses. We can't get police officers to join the force. So the problem is
Right.
so large, and I don't see this trend helping that problem. And like Annie, I miss the handshake. And maybe because we're kind of that generation where, we grew up with typewriters in high school and kind of moved
Yeah.
on to computers a little bit later. This whole virtual thing, as efficient as it has been, and this Zoom has been so great and everything, it's really taken a lot. I'm urging to go out and give somebody a big hug, and say, hey, great job in a room and stuff. So
I have to tell you, one of the things that I've been doing in the last 4 or 5 weeks is driveway dating. So I've been going to clients driveway dating. So I'll call a client and say, meet me in your driveway in 10 for 10. And I bring bubbles for the kids and we just visit, because sometimes you just need to see somebody.
Absolutely.
If we can't touch them, you just want to say, I'm well, you're well, we're here. And when you need a play date, I'll come with my bubbles and take the kids off your hands so you can shower, that kind of thing. But it's been really,
Speaking of kids, Jamie, what do you have Maddie locked up in a closet? I have an adopted granddaughter.
There you go. And speaking about kids, I mean, we're all waiting to find out about summer camp. It's been challenging. A lot of families with people working and getting the daycare situation. I mean, that's been very difficult for a lot of people. And what's going to happen on that? It looks like summer camp may open, but we won't know for another couple of weeks.
Yeah.
and how many people won't send their kids because of the fear still? I mean, there's still that. And kids are starving to be with each other.
Yeah.
They really are.
And I've even had families say, I don't know if I want to send my child to school next September. So,
Yeah, same here.
yeah, it's like, what do you do? I mean, homeschooling's good, but I wasn't trained as a good teacher, thankfully for Zoom, and then just keeping them occupied and getting them out, running around. That's a whole other issue.
Yeah. So one of the offers that I got this weekend for the property in North Falmouth was from a golf course looking to house their summer staff. So, I think they're taking a page from Bill's book, but, looking for a way to permanently offer as a perk a place to stay on Cape Cod.
Very interesting. And, Jennifer, I'm going to go back to you because I think it's important to note a lot of what we're talking about here is the challenge of people feeling disconnected and people searching and thirsting for ways to still feel connected to their community, or if they don't live here, connected to this community. So that really makes the work that you're doing at the road race to still have that event and have people feel as though they're part of the Falmouth Road Race and the Falmouth experience all the more important.
Yeah, and it's been tough for everyone, but the events industry, is what I'm a part of. And, our team, Dimsey Sports, we manage 30 races a year, and almost all of them have been canceled. Many have gone virtual, but a lot of them are off the table at this point, and it's been a real challenge. And, our team has been working great remotely since the middle of March, but, to everyone's point here, we miss being in the office together. I mean, you spend the whole day and you're just, kind of bouncing ideas off of each other, and just that face-to-face, and you're having a cup of coffee. It's great on Zoom, and without Zoom, I don't know where we would be at.
Right.
But it's not the same as, seeing somebody, and then there's the fear factor and whatnot. So we just try to stay focused on, let's just give people an opportunity to connect. Let's keep creating ways and platforms that, that they can work together and share things online, because that's where we're at. It's an adjustment for everyone. And it's, it took a few weeks to kind of get in the flow, but for registration today, we stayed on Zoom for 8 hours. It was great. And Falmouth Cares, Phil.
And Falmouth Cares. Love it.
Falmouth
Quickly,
Cares.
before we get to Falmouth Cares, Bill did inspire me to ask a question. And Jamie, I'm going to ask this of you because Bill mentioned about your granddaughter. And one of I think the things that people have found valuable about this show is that they can identify with things that other people are going through, whether it's in their business or in their personal lives. And so, Jamie, Jamie is raising, for those folks that don't know Jamie, he's raising his granddaughter. And so during this pandemic has not only had to adapt to the new normal of a virtual real estate world, but also having to become a teacher and a coach to a 3-year-old girl. So just tell us briefly, Jamie, about how you juggle all that and stay sane.
Well, I'm learning to take orders better from that's
Smart
flow. Definitely.
Nice.
Yeah, you always do that. But the Zoom classroom, she goes to Little Milestones, which is just moving. They're actually going into a bigger facility in East Falmouth. So that's pretty exciting, and they're waiting to open. But they provide that structure of the day, having a routine, and then having some people to help me. And I've got someone that's been with me for years. Mary Poppins, I call her. She's from England. Oh my God, she keeps us both under control to make sure the house is a little neat and different things like that. So she's keeping us going. And then I have a high school, a junior going into senior, and listening to how they're dealing with things and all that. I mean, it was tough to, my niece graduated UMass Amherst and went to her virtual graduation. And, you know, what these kids are going through has been interesting. But there's been some really good ideas. It's just staying in touch, having her visit people, you know, getting out there. Certain people we do bread deliveries for. We go over to Pompanesett and just hang out. You know, there's still stuff to do. Being, you know, this is such a beautiful place to live. It's, you know, I moved here back in the 80s to raise my family, and, you know, I loved it then. I love it now.
That's great. Well, thank you for all you're doing. And so since Bill put up his logo, you know, we can talk a little bit about that for a minute, because this whole show that we do started as a virtual roundtable of Bill, Gary, Michael, and I just sitting around a virtual table and talking about what was happening in Falmouth and how we could help and what we could do to improve the human condition here in our little corner of the world. And so we call it Falmouth Cares. And Gary and a friend of his came up with that logo that you see behind a few of us. And Bill and his wife, Linda, along with Sam and Judy LaRusso, generously donated 1,000 t-shirts with that logo on it. As of today's taping of this show, we've raised more than $10,000 for the Falmouth Service Center and Belonging to Each Other, a local homeless nonprofit, by the sale of those t-shirts. And so, you know, one of the things I'd like to talk about for the last few minutes of this show is not just that effort of Falmouth Cares. I will tell you, it's been amazing. We've seen social media be able to work.
Remember, Gary also did a whole lot with the banners that we have all over town.
Yes, he did. Thank you. Yes, Gary generously donated dozens of banners that you see.
And let's make sure Jennifer Washburn gets the credit for this logo. She did the work.
She's terrific.
That's right.
Well, and so there you go. You see that just a whole list of people. It's just been people coming together for no other reason than to make things
doesn't work
better.
well for
And
me.
it's really been a pleasure. But we've seen that not just with the work that we're doing in Falmouth Cares, but the work that we heard Jennifer talk about that the Road Race is doing and their charitable efforts. And I know Jamie and Annie are both involved in many charitable organizations. And you know, Michael, not only through the chamber, but personally supports others. And so we're in the worst of times, but we're also in the best of times. And we're really seeing the best of humanity emerge, and people give back and give them themselves. And even people that don't have a lot to give are giving back. So I just want to talk about that for a few minutes. And anyone on the panel here, share an experience or two or a thought or two about what you've seen as this has unfolded over the last couple of months.
So one thing I wanted to talk about is Annie and Lee Geshiker. I always do a bad last name.
Geisiker, you got it.
Geisiker. Put together a thing where they went out and took pictures of people on their front porch at a great social distance. And you guys raised a pile of money. Maybe you want to, for the service.
Yeah. Well, we don't have the number yet, but we're around 15 grand for all those photos.
Yeah. So.
And you know, I will say just what surprised us about that project was the sense of connection. People were so grateful to have strangers show up in their yard because they'd been together with no one else. I mean, fathers were saying, "You got my teenage boys to shower. Thank you for coming." You know, so people were very excited to see us and would want to chat. And we had 15-minute intervals because some days we were doing 16 houses in a day. So we really couldn't stay and chat. But people, the sense of connection with the Front Steps project was really what it was all about. And now we're still processing. We've gone on to businesses. I don't know if you've seen that, but we're doing Main Street and some other businesses. And it's been really trying to highlight the superheroes in business around town.
That's wonderful. And we sure have seen some superheroes in both the business and the charitable community as this has emerged over the last couple of months. Jennifer, I'm sure you've heard stories from people who have relate to you what having a virtual road race has meant to them and their ability to still feel connected to our community.
Yeah, and it, again, it's near and far. People all over just love this town, this community. I mean, they'll be back no matter what. The messages we've gotten every day, Facebook, Instagram, emails. I mean, people cannot say enough, and the support has been just amazing. And honestly, it's like there are so many stories, and we start keeping track of the ones that really inspire us, and so we can give back to them and help support them on their journey, because everybody's in a different place with this pandemic. You never really know where someone is, if they're out of work, if they're have loved ones that are ill. So it's kind of, you just have to stay positive and keep kind of putting light and love out there, and you just have to stay positive and keep people inspired and looking forward to good things to come, because it will come around again. You just
Right.
Yeah,
That's key. You got to be positive, and
It's attitude.
it's totally right. Your attitude determines your altitude, right? And I've spoken before about one of the benefits I think that came out of this is all the amount of time we've gotten to spend, and like Jennifer, has a teenage son. I have two teenage daughters, one who just finished freshman year of college, one's a junior in high school. And it's been wonderful to have all that excess time and stuff. But I think as this thing has gone on and on, I've seen a real sincere appreciation grow in them for what they really have. And to, I think being denied that socialization and being, you think about these kids that are like on their electronic devices all the time, and we'd always complain, they're always on their electronic devices. They're getting sick of being on their electronic devices. They really are. And I think they really are, to Jennifer's point, talking about people they know. They don't know whether they're hard hit or not, or you'll hear them say, "Oh, so-and-so's mom's out of work, and this one, this person's having a hard time with virtual learning, and let's try to help." And it's really heartwarming to see that the kids are realizing that time is more important than material things, and spending it wisely. I think we're all going to look back on this and say, when we go back to that hectic, crazy life, if we ever get back to that, or whatever version of it is, that at least we did have some time to connect with our families and loved ones, whether it was, being stuck at home, or we're locking them in the closet like Jamie's doing with his granddaughter, or Linda's locking Bill in the closet over at their house. I don't know, but
There you go.
And my dogs are sick of walking.
right.
My dogs are like, could you go back to work, please?
I can't think I'm dead.
Roy, you want to thank the first responders, et cetera?
Yes, absolutely. We try to do that every week. Thanks for the reminder, Bill. So as we wind down here, it's important to note that continually, we folks on the front line of this, even as thankfully, the number of hospitalizations continues to decline, there are still doctors and nurses and hospital workers who are there on the front lines every day, suiting up and showing up, and our local first responders who continue to just work tirelessly. And we continue to mention too the everyday workers, the folks at the grocery store who never had a break during this pandemic, and the folks at the local gas station, and those kind of folks that keep our lives and our economy running, even as some of us work from home. And it's just so important every week to say thank you to all of those people, so that they know we are very, very grateful for their efforts. And it's funny, we have a theme that emerges no matter the industry of our guests, the topic of human connection, and how that has expanded in many ways, even though we're physically distant from one another. And that continues to be a theme. Last week, Reverend Will Mebane from St. Barnabas said that he doesn't use the phrase social distancing. He uses the phrase physical distancing, because he wants to remind us that we still can be close even if we're physically apart. And so I'll close with this thought. Years ago, in the 1930s, I think it was, Harvard University did a study, a longitudinal study, and they wanted to figure out what the secret to longevity was. And some of you may be familiar with this study, but they followed, I think it was 130 or so young men, from many of them from tough neighborhoods in Boston and others that were freshmen at Harvard University. And they followed them through their entire lives because they wanted to see what that secret was to longevity. And if you Google Harvard longitudinal study, the answers will come up. And they released the results of the study just a couple of years ago. So it was 80 or 90-year study. And interestingly enough, the secret to longevity was not your gene pool, it wasn't genetics, it wasn't diet and exercise, which is, I guess, good news for some of the people on this panel. The single most determining factor in people's longevity was their ability to forge and maintain meaningful relationships with other human beings. And so we're learning now more than ever that connection, although we'd love it to be physically, like many of you, I'm a hugger and I'm a handshaker, and boy, do I miss that. But we can find human connection in other ways that sustains us. And so particularly Jennifer and Annie and Jamie, thank you to you for reminding us of that and sharing your stories on this show today, because we continue to learn and share every week that there's no more important connection than the connections between human beings. And we continue to talk about that because Falmouth cares.
Yeah.
There you go.
So thank you to everyone. It's been great to have you on. We will continue to do this on a weekly basis as long as the need arises. Next week for our Memorial Day show, we will have a couple of special guests that are related to the service to our nation, and we're really excited about that. But we are very, very grateful for Jennifer Edwards, Annie Hart Cool, and Jamie Regan for joining our regular panelists, Bill Zammer, Gary Vacon, and Michael Kasparian this week. So to all of you, thank you. Be well, be safe, and we'll see you soon.
Namaste. Bye-bye. Be well.
Thank you all.
Happy Memorial Day.
Stay connected.
The Falmouth bells were tolling, and our hearts sang on. Was it the spell of our town, or an April dawn? Who knows if we shall meet again? But when the morning chimes ring sweet again, I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. In that small